very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. I'm Ritwika Gupta. Tonight we are bringing you an exclusive conversation with a global company in the transportation, logistics and e-commerce industry. Yes, I'm talking about FedEx. What are the opportunities, challenges and their vision for 2025 and beyond? All that and more, I'm chatting with Kami Viswanathan, President of the Middle East, Indian Subcontinent and Africa region at FedEx. Kami, welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow. Yet again, it's always a pleasure to be chatting with you.
Thank you. Great to be here again.
So Kami, when we had the last conversation almost 2 years ago, I think I want to begin this interview by just doing a bit of reflection over the last 2 years. How do you think the logistics industry has really evolved in the recent past? And in terms of how it has really contributed to India's aspirations to be a global trade hub?
So first of all, I'll start by saying that I think India will play a much greater role in global trade going forward, both in terms of exports as well as imports.
Sure.
And we at FedEx have a sort of a ringside view of shifts in global supply chains. And what we are seeing is a definitive interest from global businesses in setting up manufacturing and export operations out of India. And you see this across different sectors. And we're also seeing Indian business houses going international in terms of acquiring assets abroad and tapping into international markets. And I think the government has recognized this potential and has also realized that logistics plays a key role in making Indian manufacturing competitive in terms of efficiency and cost effectiveness. And the Gati Shakti master plan is focused on developing physical infrastructure, multimodal infrastructure.
Yeah.
The national logistics policy is about creating a multi-jurisdictional framework to simplify approvals. And the ULIP platform is focused on digitizing logistics so that you increase efficiency and standardization. And our focus at FedEx has actually been in tandem with these three focus areas.
Sure.
So we recently added a freighter into Bangalore from Asia because we see a lot of global businesses setting up in South India.
Sure.
And so this freighter will provide faster transit times from Asia to India and then connect onwards to Dubai and to Europe and the US.
Okay.
We're also exploring the opportunity to set up an air hub in India, again with the idea of creating a greater value proposition to connect Indian cities to international markets as well as the South Asia region itself. And we're working with the government on what are some of the regulatory facilitations required to make this happen in terms of transshipments and reducing transit times and so on. And on the digitization front as well, one of the things we're hearing from our global customers is that simplifying and providing a single interface for all of their shipping requirements is important. And so we have a one-stop solution approach where customers can ship both express as well as air freight and ocean freight via FedEx through a single platform.
Sure.
And that's a single interface with single billing and invoicing. And that really simplifies the whole shipping process for customers. And this is also backed by a technology platform, which is called FOSS.
Okay.
And that provides a single interface. So it creates that simplicity and efficiency.
Sure.
So we're quite bullish about the prospects for international trade in and out of India. And our plans are aligned around that.
Fantastic. So how was the year 2024 for the logistics industry as a whole?
I think one of the key topics, if you were to ask me, in 2024 has been supply chain resiliency.
Sure.
And supply chain resiliency has become a boardroom topic post-pandemic.
Right.
Because I think businesses have realized that in order to succeed and thrive and grow, it's important to manage the shifts that we are seeing in global supply chains and build in resiliency not just through alternative supply sourcing, but also through technology and data.
Very recently, Union Minister Mr. Nitin Gadkari made a remark. He outlined a goal to reduce logistic costs to 9% of GDP in the next couple of years. So I want to understand, how do you think this will impact the logistics industry, and also what does it really mean for India's competitiveness on the global stage?
I think competitiveness in manufacturing has to be enabled by logistics efficiency.
Sure.
And so the goal of reducing logistics costs to 9% is the right goal. And if we are able to bring in the efficiency end-to-end across multimodal logistics, and that will happen through infrastructure development, through policy changes, and through digitization. And I think those are the exact areas that the government's vision is focused on. So I think it's very progressive.
Yeah.
And if we are able to bring it down, then that is going to provide a significant impetus to exports because of increasing cost competitiveness out of India.
Now, you spoke about NLP, PM Gati Shakti movement as well, but I also want to understand, are there any other sort of collaborations that can be done with the government which could benefit the ecosystem at large?
Absolutely. We recently actually announced a collaboration with Invest India, which is focused on the small and medium segment. So we see a lot of growth in the small and medium segment. And this collaboration is with the One District, One Product program, where we are working with the government on promoting over 1,200 products from 750 districts in India via support on working with businesses on areas like packaging, inventory planning, identifying export markets, and facilitating international trade for products which might have had a more local market hitherto. So I think that's an example of a collaboration where government and the private sector can come together to promote Indian exports, and particularly from the small and medium segment, and take it to international markets.
Right. Kami, you spoke about smaller businesses, and Leaders of Tomorrow as a show, as you might know, that is watched by a lot of MSMEs, startup founders. So I want to dig in a little bit on this. Like, could you talk about your collaboration with smaller business at large? And you spoke about your partnership with Invest India. But how is FedEx, really trying to empower SMEs to access global markets? If you could talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think the SME segment is a huge driver of the economy. And our approach to really facilitating growth in that segment, particularly with exports, has been via our cluster strategy. So we have identified geographic and/or industrial clusters across India.
Sure.
And examples would be the silk and e-commerce sector in Chennai, handicrafts in Bhuj, or the home furnishing sector in Delhi. And what we do is to provide customized solutions, whether it's pickup and deliveries or pricing or clearance for businesses in these sectors. And we also organize what we call SME Connect events, which are really networking events where SMEs get to meet peers and also experts who can help mentor and advise them. And there is knowledge sharing around what are some best practices for developing exports.
Sure.
This has been a very popular program, and we're seeing a good traction from the clusters coming from this. The other thing we're doing is to engage with startups. And we have something called FedEx Innovation Lab, where we engage with early stage startups in logistics tech, e-commerce, where we partner with startups to develop commercial value propositions that we can together take to market. And FedEx can bring our global network, customer base and brand to help startups grow. And from our point of view, it's about leveraging external innovation, leaning into new technologies, new business models, and so forth. So I think for us, it's about simplifying and supporting the whole export process and facilitate greater international commerce from SMEs. And this is some of the ways that we are trying to do that.
Fantastic. It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back to IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. Tonight we are deep diving into India's logistics industry with Kami Viswanathan of FedEx. Listen in. You spoke about technology and innovation, and I really feel India's digital mission has, led to the country becoming one of the leading digital economies. So I really want to understand how FedEx as a company views innovation and technology, and especially about you have a FedEx import tool, right? That streamlines transaction across markets. If you could also tell us about that.
Sure, absolutely. So we have a three-pronged approach to how we're leveraging data and technology. So the first is to look at how can we optimize our internal operations and customer experience with data and technology that we have in our network, and whether that is looking at optimizing our air and ground networks using robotics and automation at our hubs, and the FedEx import tool is an example as well, where imports has been a fairly complicated process. And what the FedEx import tool does is to provide a single portal where customers can upload their documents related to imports. We use AI to process them, and then we also facilitate duties and taxes payments through that same portal.
Right.
So it becomes an easy one-stop portal for customers to simplify the whole imports experience. The second area that we focus on is in putting digital solutions in customers' hands. And our SensorWare technology provides real-time monitoring of time-critical shipments in our network. Okay. And we have a product called Surround, which actually helps predict where things could get delayed or go wrong, using historical data, including weather, so external factors like weather. And Surround also helps with demand forecasting and management as well as inventory planning. The third aspect of our approach is our platform approach, where a great example of that is FDX, which is a platform intended for e-commerce companies that we launched in the US at the National Retail Federation conference, and we are now doing a soft launch with a handful of customers in India. And what it does is to really provide a single platform for everything from demand generation to shipping, tracking, demand fulfillment, as well as handling returns.
Right.
And distribution in international markets has been a challenge for e-commerce companies, particularly smaller e-commerce companies. And what this platform does is, via our third-party integrations, where we have service providers that are integrated on this platform who can help fulfill in markets like Europe and the US, we simplify that and create that capability. And so providing this end-to-end journey for e-commerce helps facilitate international e-commerce. So in India, domestic e-commerce has exploded over the last few years, but international e-commerce is just still taking off. Sure. And we think using digital solutions and simplifying the process will help accelerate that trend.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of e-commerce, could you highlight to us some of the opportunities and challenges in e-commerce in India today?
Sure. I think, like I said, international e-commerce is taking off. We do see growth, and our customers are definitely looking at leaning heavily into international markets. demand generation it starts there in terms of there are marketplaces in Europe, in the US, and integration into those marketplaces is the first requirement for e-commerce company to get access to international customers. There are also direct-to-consumer brands, but I think the other challenge is the whole logistics, e-commerce logistics process, which and not just the shipping, but also the fulfillment. And fulfillment requires either distribution capabilities, physical capabilities and warehouses in international markets, or you need a service provider who can work with you for that. The other big challenge in international e-commerce is returns. So handling returns, which is fairly common for certain types of e-commerce products, is quite complicated because there are regulatory challenges involved with customs clearance and so forth. Which is why the approach we've taken is this platform approach. If we can solve all of these problems using technology and provide a single interface, then you're helping facilitate greater e-commerce growth because you're hitting on all the pain points that e-commerce companies are facing.
Fantastic. Kami, the last time we spoke, sustainability was one of the core topics that we spoke about, and I understand it's still one of the main priorities for FedEx. But as we are stepping into a new year, as we are welcoming 2025, how are you as a company viewing green logistics?
Sure. Sustainability continues to be an absolute priority for us. And the approach we have taken is, again, three-pronged. It is about decarbonize, co-create, and neutralize.
Sure.
So when we say decarbonize, it is looking at our end-to-end operations and starting with how can we bring more EVs into our fleet. So we have committed to make 100% of our vehicle purchases electric by 2030. And moving on to our facilities, to packaging, sustainable aviation fuel. So looking at all of those areas in our operations where we can reduce carbon emissions, so decarbonize. The second pillar is co-create. And I think we realize and recognize that we need to engage with the larger ecosystem, our customers, suppliers, and other players in order to really make a difference and create a green supply chain. And so, for example, we have a tool called FedEx Sustainability Insight, which is a cloud-based tool which provides our customers with information almost real-time on their carbon emissions on shipments in our network. So this helps them plan their supply chains better and also helps with their ESG reporting and so forth. So this is an example of how we are engaging with the ecosystem in order to move more towards green logistics. The third pillar is neutralize, where we have pledged a $100 million commitment to the Yale Center for Natural Carbon Capture. And what we're focused on there is to develop carbon sequestration technologies, which will help offset greenhouse gas emissions, starting with at least the current level of airline emissions in the system today. So this three-pronged approach is, I think, our strategy and plan for moving towards a more green supply chain end-to-end.
So tell me, what are the trends are you looking forward to in 2025? What are the trends do you foresee in the logistics industry?
Sure. I think, like I said earlier, resiliency is going to continue to be a key topic in 2025 and beyond. And our mission is to build smarter supply chains for everyone. And what that means is we want to enable our customers to be able to react to changes in market demand and plan better to handle supply chain disruptions. And we are leveraging data and technology to do that and thereby making the supply chain smarter. And I think that will continue to be a big focus for us going forward. As far as India is concerned, we continue to be very bullish about the tremendous opportunity that we see in India in terms of the growth of international trade. And we've had a strong double-digit growth in our India business over the last year, and we expect to double our business in the next 3 years. We're investing in capacity, in infrastructure, and in digital solutions that I've talked about. And we also actually announced yesterday a partnership with the Super Kings.
Yeah.
For both the Chennai Super Kings for the IPL as
And
well as the Johannesburg Super Kings
Yeah.
for the South Africa Premier League.
Right.
And
What inspired that? If you could tell us a little bit about that also.
Sure. So for us, India, like I said, is a strategic market, and we are this partnership really reflects our aspirations for India, for our Indian consumers, business owners, enterprises, because to us this reflects and represents winning, excellence, teamwork, all values that are very core for FedEx. And we are a principal sponsor and the official logistics partner. But this is more than just our logo on the jersey and about moving equipment and so on. I think it's really about how can we energize communities, how can we create shared experiences. And to us, that is the big opportunity in terms of engagement with our customers, our team members, and the larger community around this partnership.
Sure. One piece of advice for entrepreneurs who are in the logistics industry, what would you like to tell them?
I think I would say think global. Our challenges today are global. And there are a lot of shifts happening in global value chains and supply chains. And there is an opportunity to be thinking about how can we build more resiliency into global supply chains through data, technology. What could be the role of startups in that, in working with larger service providers? And there is I think, opportunity for a global DNA for startups. And that is what I would suggest to someone who is looking at this whole area today.
And finally, as a leader, tell me, what is your long-term and short-term vision for FedEx?
I think for FedEx India, our long-term vision is to be a true partner in the India growth story.
Sure.
And there is a lot that we see that's going to happen over the next few years. India is going to play a much larger role, not just as a market, not just as a supply base, not just as a trade partner, but also as an innovation hub.
Thank you so much, Kami, for your time. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me again. Nice
Thanks
to see
so
you
much.
again.
Great. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 12. We hope you enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.